There's snow on the ground and inspiration in the air, and that can only mean one thing. It's time to build an awesome snow crawler. You see, I just can't get this idea out of my head. Zooming around through the fresh powdered snow, dragging along all sorts of gear for the ultimate ice base camp. I'm talking a high-tech setup on a frozen lake, cooking all sorts of delicious foods, drilling through the ice to do some ice fishing, and just having some awesome times. But this isn't the first time I had this sort of idea, because last year I built an electric jet sled train and drove it out for a pretty sweet winter adventure. But after that, all I could think about was all the ways how I could improve it and make it better. So that's what we're going to do today. Build a whole new version of the snow crawler from the ground up, using some parts from last year's build and adding on some new ones as well. And it all starts by removing the axle from the old build so I can bring it over to the new build. And this axle is made up of two 48-volt 1000-watt motors that I modified together for double the power. For last year's build, I ended up using wood to build the frame of that, but for this year's, I'm going to be upgrading to steel, some beautiful steel punch tubing. And if you've been following along with any of my last couple project builds, you know I've been using this material to build those vehicles, and I've just been having such a blast with it, I wanted to use it again to build something else. I'm also going to be covering up all the steel in this project with this nice yellow heavy-duty farm equipment paint to add some extra protection and get this project looking awesome. And plus, who doesn't like some cheese sticks? It's also really easy to cut the tubing to different lengths so that when I'm ready to assemble the project, it's almost going to be like I'm building a set of Lego. So, let's get building. I start by laying out the pieces of tubing that are going to be used for the base of the frame. And the lovely thing about using this material is I can hold it all together with a whole bunch of nuts and bolts. And for this whole project, I'm going to be using nylon lock nuts to prevent the bolts from loosening from vibrations. Before I tighten it all down, I'm going to need a way to keep the frame from shifting side to side. And I ended up going with the idea of using some large bolts and a whole bunch of washers to make like a washer shish kebab so that when I tighten it down, it's going to keep the center tubing nice and rigid and parallel and keep the frame from doing any weird shifting. I also want to add in some vertical supports around the frame, and in order to make sure everything lines up, I have to use some washers as spacers so that it lines up perfectly with the holes on the pieces. I can then add on some more vertical supports around the edges and tie them all together with some horizontal pieces as well. And when I add in the bolts and tighten them down, we can see the tubing automatically lines itself up perfectly for a really nice and square structure. Beautiful. Not too heavy and nice and strong as well. Next up, let's get these motors on here. And in order to attach them, it's time to make some control arms. And these are super simple design. I'm just going to take a couple bolts and make these nice long yellow forks. Let's attach these things to the frame, using some rubber bushings, washers, a lock nut, and a large bolt. And since I'm using the square punch tubing, it makes it really easy to use these as control arms, as I can just install it directly through the holes in the frame. And that's one of the reasons why I keep building with this material. It's just so fun and easy to use. Now with the control arms attached, they're not going to do much good unless they have some suspension. And if these shocks happen to look familiar, it's because I actually installed them in my last project, but they were just a bit too soft for it, so I ended up replacing them with some stronger shocks and setting these aside for a future project. And now we're in the future, and this is a project. Let's go ahead and get these installed, which is super simple. Just slot it into the end of the control arm and tighten it down with some washers and a bolt. And just like that, we got the shocks attached to the bottom. For attaching the tops of the shock to the frame, I add a support beam going across, as well as these little metal brackets, so that when I tighten it all down, I can just lift up the shock and install it with another large bolt. And after installing the other shock, we can see how our ride's gonna have some nice cushion when we're driving around. And for attaching the motors, it's super easy. You just have to maneuver them underneath it, place the control arms over it, and connect it with some bolts directly to the axles. And a few bolts later, we have our motors firmly attached to the frame. So let's hook them up to something so we can get this thing moving. And for that, I got something pretty cool planned. You see, for my last project, I ended up buying a set of tracks, and these things were just absolutely awesome. And after driving around for a while and really putting them through a stress test, these things performed beautifully. So I'm gonna borrow a couple from that project so I can bring them over and attach them to this one. And they just easily slot over to each of the axles where I can place on a nut and tighten them down in place. I also added a couple small pieces of tubing on the backside just to help distribute the pressure the shocks are going to put on the frame. Now that we have the back of the vehicle built, we're going to have to start working on the front, because right now there's not a good way to steer this thing, and that's something we got to figure out. So let's build that up next. And I'm going to be pulling inspiration for my motorcycle camper build by building a similar steering mechanism on this one. And of course, I'm going to be building it using some more of the square punch tubing. On to building the front fork section, and this is the part that's going to hold the wheel and also the suspension. And by using a smaller size of the square tubing, I can fit it inside the larger one so that it'll be able to freely move up and down, so that when I'm ready to install the shocks, it'll have a place for the shocks to actually compress. Before attaching the bottom of the shocks to the fork, I want to introduce you to the tire. And this is one of the wider tires I could find with these huge little rubber nubbins on them, and I'm hoping this tire is going to have a fantastic grip in the snow and ice. For attaching the tire, I'm going to be using this large threaded rod as an axle, but that does mean I have to drill out some of the holes on the bottom of the fork so that it's wide enough for the axle to actually fit. Then I can head back over to the fork to finish building it out and add on a few more pieces of tubing just to make sure it's nice and strong and prevent any weird shifting when I'm driving around. Now, for attaching the fork to the rest of the frame, we're going to need something pretty beefy. So that's where this comes in, this massive bolt. This thing is so big, you can actually use it as its own hammer. So let's get this thing installed by drilling out the correct size hole on the front of the vehicle and the holes on the fork as well. Now we can bring the pieces together using the large bolt, some rubber washers, and also some heavy metal washers, and a little help from a hammer so that I can bolt it all together. And now we have a super secure connection between the fork and the frame of the vehicle. Nice. Let's get that front tire on there. To make sure the front tire spins freely, I install a hub with a bearing in the center so that I can slip the axle in it, as well as some of these rubber bushings to make sure everything's nice and lined up. After installing the other side and placing on a lock nut, I can bring it over to the front of the vehicle, slip it into the bottom of the fork, cut off the extra bit of axle, and then bolt it all together. Now I can take the bottom of the shocks and attach them to the rest of the fork with some bolts and washers. And with that, we have our front fork with suspension and free spinning hub. Looking good. As you can probably tell, we're still missing a way on how to easily steer this thing. So that's what we're going to figure out next, the handlebar situation. And for that, I'm going to be using some black steel pipe, connectors, and flanges. It's super easy to connect these pieces together as they just thread into each other to make some really strong shapes. But to ensure that they don't unthread themselves when I'm driving, I ended up taking my flux core welder just to weld all of the joints to turn them into one solid piece of metal. Then it's off to the paint station with them to get these things looking beautiful. And once the piece is dry, it's super easy to install them as I can just use a couple bolts and attach them directly down to the front fork. And now we have some super strong and secure handlebars that'll be able to turn this thing wherever we need to go. Awesome. Next up, let's give this thing a seat. And I think this is a pretty cool little seat. And if it looks familiar, it's because it's actually the same one I used on my last year's jet sled train, and I just wanted to repurpose it for this one. I like how it folds down nice and flat, it's super lightweight, and it should also be really easy to install on the build by using a couple of 2x4s. And for all the 2x4s I'm using in this project, I give them a heavy coat of some nice waterproof stain just to give them some protection from all the snow. For installing the seat, I drill out some matching holes in the 2x4s as well as the metal frame of the seat so I can easily bolt the pieces together. Then to ensure the seat sits nice and level on the vehicle, I add a couple more pieces of tubing. Then it's back to the seat where I drill out a couple more holes on the 2x4s that line up perfectly with the frame of the vehicle so that I can slip in a couple bolts and tighten it down directly to the metal tubing. And just like that, we got our seat firmly attached to the frame. I also added a couple more pieces of tubing along the fork section just to add some extra strength. And with that, the frame is complete, and this thing is really starting to look awesome. It's comfy to sit in, steers beautifully, and it's ready to receive its power source. So let's meet the battery. And this is a massive 48 volt 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. And this thing has pretty much been powering all of my builds the last couple years, and I've been putting this thing through so much stress and it just keeps coming through. So it's going to be the power source for this project as well. And I'm going to be making a nice protective home for it inside of this red storage container right here. And if you've seen many of my projects, you've probably seen these containers before. They just turn out to be like the perfect size for this battery. They're waterproof, rugged, and easy to modify. And it also wouldn't be a project of mine unless I use some of this clear double-sided tape. Using the tape, I stick down a couple of pieces of wood on the inside of the case and a couple of pieces on the outside. Then I can take some wood screws and screw the pieces of wood together through the case for a nice, strong, secure connection. Since the battery is going to end up going inside here, I want to give it a nice strong base for it to rest on. And for that, I'm going to be using a cutting board. And honestly, I've been having a lot of fun using this material lately. It's super easy to cut and modify as you can just use regular tools on it, and it just makes really clean work. After attaching the cutting board with a few screws, I flip the container over so I can drill out 2 holes through all the layers, so I can use some threaded rods, feed it through to the other side, and bolt it all together for a really strong permanent structure. And I'm also going to use the threaded rods to help tie down our battery later. To give the battery a little bit of a comfier ride, I'm going to be adding on some of this foam adhesive tape all along the bottom of the cutting board just to have a nice little place for the battery to rest. Not only is this going to hold our battery, it's also going to hold a bunch of our electronics and switches. Like for one, this 3-position switch for our 3 speeds, a switch to turn off the main power to the system, some really cool quick connectors that are going to be used to power accessories, and some nice cable glands so we can manage the wires coming in and out. So let's get these installed, using a hole saw to drill out all the places I'm going to be installing these components. To hold all the components in place, I'm going to be using some 5-minute epoxy so I can mix it up and glue them all in permanently. Starting with the quick connectors, all of the cable glands, the 3-speed switch, and then the main power switch. After letting all the epoxy dry, it's time to install it on the vehicle by drilling out some holes that line up perfectly with the metal steel frame so that I can just bolt it down in place, so that our electronics box is securely connected to the vehicle and ready to be wired up. Starting with taking the wires connected to the motors, feeding them in through the cable glands in the back so I can extend them so they're ready to be connected up later. But before that, it's finally time to install the battery. And the only thing that's hard about it is the thing weighs like 80 pounds. But after gently sliding it in place, it's time to show you how we're going to hold it down by using, you guessed it, another cutting board. We're also going to need a potato, a pepper, and a pack of ramen because it's absolutely freezing in the garage today. After warming up a bit, it's time to take our cutting board and cut our cutting board. Then I can drill in some holes that line up with the threaded rod inside of our enclosure. I'm also going to be using this top part to mount the rest of our electronics. Like for one, these motor controllers, which are used to control our motors. And I already went ahead and color coded and extended all of the wires. And for connecting up all the wires in this project, I'm going to be using these bus bars and terminal blocks just to make things a lot easier. I'm also going to be installing this, which is a DC to DC converter. It takes 48 volts from our battery and steps it down to 12 volts up to 20 amps so I can run things like 12 volt appliances. And lastly, this 150 amp resettable fuse just so I can add protection to the whole system. Now it's off to the cutting board where I can lay out all the components and figure out where I want the placement to be. Once I'm happy with it, I can take a marker to trace out where all the holes line up. Now for installing the components in the cutting board, I came up with this really cool technique on my last project of using this special drill bit that lines up with this socket head machine screw so that when I use it to drill about halfway through the board, it leaves these really cool holes that have like a step in them so that I can take the machine screws, screw them in place, and have them sit flush along the backside and have some nice strong threaded posts on the front so I can easily mount all the components. But before installing the components, it's time to take some more of that foam adhesive strip and place some pieces of it on the backside just so it has some nice cushion on the top of the battery. Now I can drop all the components in place and tighten them all down to the cutting board underneath. And to make things easier, I use my label maker to go around and label all the components and all of the signal connections. And using all of these bus bars and terminal blocks to connect all of the wires makes it super easy in case anything breaks and I need to quickly swap out a part, which, spoiler alert, might be happening later in the video. With most of the wiring hooked up, there's still a couple more things we need to attach, like for one, the controls. And this is going to be the wire for our 3-speed switch, which I feed out through the front cable gland and connect it up to the 3-position switch. And this will be for controlling our high, low, and normal speed. For our throttle and reverse signals, I take that wire and feed it out through the cable gland on the bottom so that I can hook it up to this nice little thumb throttle switch that can be mounted on a handlebar. And for hooking up our reverse signal, I'll be using this other switch that can also be mounted on a handlebar. And for connecting up smaller wires like this, I'm a big fan of these self-soldering heat shrink tubing wraps, which you just melt with a heat gun and it melts a little bead of solder and makes really strong connections. I also cover the whole thing with a large piece of shrink tubing just to give some extra protection from the elements. Now before I attach the controls to the handlebar, I take some yellow electrical tape just to wrap around the metal to add a little bit of extra layer and thicken it up a bit so the controls will have something more to bite into. Now I can take the throttle and reverse, drop them in place, and tighten them down to the handlebar. And we can easily control the speed and reverse with just one thumb. You may have also noticed I had one more of these thumb switches that I'm going to be installing in the opposite handlebar. And this switch is going to be used for controlling our light system. Because yes, I want to drive this thing around at night. And I'm going to be installing one of these lights on the front fork and another one of these lights on the back section. For powering the light system, I'll use the last remaining cable gland to feed in a wire so I can hook it up to the 12-volt supply on the inside. And now, when I flip the switch, we'll be able to see where we're going at night. Awesome. The next thing to tackle is going to be all these hanging wires, because you don't want to snag these when you're driving around. And in order to fix that, I'm going to be using some of this yellow split tubing. This stuff's super great. It's got a slit along the center of it, so you can just feed it around all the wires. Then you can take some zip ties and zip tie it down directly to the metal steel tubing, ensuring all the wires are nice and tucked away safely and give a nice clean look. I also head inside of the battery enclosure and give all those wires some cable management as well, getting everything to be nice and tucked away and looking clean. I then take an extra piece of cutting board for some more support, take some washers and wing nuts, and tighten down the electronics to squish the battery in place and keep everything nice and secure. And I gotta say, the electronics turned out looking pretty sweet. And it all fits nice and snug inside this waterproof container. Gotta love it. And using the yellow split tubing to protect the wires looks pretty sweet itself. With the electronics complete, there's just a few more things to add. Like for one, a nice set of brakes, because I think it would be smart to be able to stop this thing. And these are really easy to install in these axles I got. They just slot over the brake disc and you attach them with a couple small bolts. After attaching on the other brake caliper, I can take the brake handle and feed up the wire up to the front handlebar and bolt it down in place. Then I can take some zip ties and cable manage the brake line all the way down underneath the vehicle. And just like that, we got our brakes. And speaking of brakes, I think it's about time we tested out our system to see if anything actually breaks. And you can see when I hit the throttle, the track's moving. Absolutely beautiful. Except only one side of the vehicle's moving. The right side, nothing's happening at all. I should have really tested this before doing all the wire management, but it turns out the right motor controller, it's got some weird corrosion and nastiness on the inside, and the thing just won't work. So we're going to have to replace it with a new right motor controller. And oh boy am I happy that I designed this system so all the components just easily unscrew in place. So I can just pull out the old one, pop in a new one, and tighten down a few bolts and we're good to go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, let's test the system out again. Take 2, let's hit the throttle and see what happens. And right away, our motors are working in unison. Absolutely beautiful. We got full control of our throttle, our forward and reverse works, and our 3-speed control works as well, which lets the motors go a little bit slower or a little bit faster. We're back in business. Now that we know our electronic system works, it's time to head over to the side of the battery box because we have a few quick connect ports to discuss. One of the ports puts out 12 volts DC, which is going to be useful for something I'm going to bring camping, which I'm super excited about. And the other port puts out 48 volts, which is going to be used for charging and also useful for something I built on my last project. And that is this nice modular inverter built into one of these storage containers that you can just drop in place, plug into the quick connect, and when powered on, it gives you access to 120 volt AC or your standard US house outlet. So I can bring some cool stuff out with me and have some nice power on the go. Now, with our electronic system complete and our frame nice and built out, there's just a few more little things to add. Like for one thing, a nice place for my feet to rest when driving this around. So I found these cool little footrests that fold up, and they're going to be super easy to install as I can just take a bolt and some washers and bolt it directly down to the bottom of the fork. And now there's a nice place to rest the feet when you're driving around, so you don't have to worry about catching any weeds or anything. I'm also going to be attaching on this flag mount by bolting it directly to the frame, so I can bring along with me this flag made out of some yellow tarp. You see, this is a piece of tarp that really started me off on building all these fun projects. It's been with me on so many different builds, and I just always want to remember where I came from. And that's why I want to keep it with me. I'm also going to be attaching the super large carabiner to the back of the axle just so I can drag some sleds and gear behind me. And the final finishing touch is gotta be the tiny little license plate. So let's get this on there. And this is going to be super easy to install. I just take some tiny little yellow zip ties and zip it in place. Absolutely perfect. And with that, the only thing left to do now is let's take this machine out and have ourselves an adventure. Let's go. Let's hit the throttle. Woo! Oh, this is awesome. It's a smooth ride out here today. Got some nice fresh snow on the ground. Just cruising along. So the point of today is hopefully we're going to try to do some ice fishing. And maybe down here is a good spot to make up camp, I'm thinking. Alright, you can see there's like some like cattail weeds and stuff right here, so we're right on like the edge of where the lake is. I'm not actually sure how thick the ice is, so that's gonna be the first thing we do. Check how thick the ice is before we come out here. Alright, definitely frozen, but let's see how thick it actually is. And I got one of these things. Never actually used one. It's like an auger. It's got some like blades on the end of it. And they honestly look pretty sharp. Get started. I haven't even broke the surface yet. It's already pretty deep in there, to be honest. So that's a good sign. Alright, we broke through the ice, and I brought a pretty advanced way to measure the ice thickness. Check it out. It's the stick. I just took a piece of wood, put a screw in the end of it, and then measured some inches on it. When I dip it in, I can place it under the ice and it'll catch. And we see we're right around 9 inches thick. That's awesome. We got way more than enough ice today. Now that I know the ice is nice and thick, I'm thinking of where I actually want to set up the ice fishing little camp tonight. Fun fact, I've actually never gone ice fishing. I've done fishing many times, but never been ice fishing. I don't know why, but yeah, we're going to give it a go tonight at least. And the ice is nice and thick. I'm going to stick driving pretty close to the shore because I'm still a little bit nervous about driving the vehicle around here, but I'm thinking I'm going to set up camp somewhere over here. But yeah, right now I just want to drop off this gear, leave it here because I want to drive this thing around more. I feel like I barely tried it out yet.
Oh man, this is so heavy. Holy moly. There we go. Beautiful. Do a little turnaround here. This is so nice. It's a wonderful day. I think there's a trail over here. There's only one way to find out. Not really a trail, but we're managing to get through it. Whoa! I think there's a trail up here. Much better. All right, I think it's time we try out on high speed. There we go. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit peppier. Definitely a little bit peppier now. Oh, this is the greatest. It is like the perfect day for this. And it handles so much better than I thought of the snow. I was worried that the tire wouldn't steer that well, but it's doing much better than I thought. See a bunch of animal trails, rabbit trails, coyote trails, maybe deer trails running through all here. But this is just awesome driving through here, just cruising. And it's honestly turning out to be a beautiful day. Got the sun and everything. It's not cloudy and cold. It's just, it's like the perfect day right now. I'm probably gonna turn around in a minute and head back to camp and probably set up camp soon because I don't want to spend all my battery right now. I definitely want to save some for later at the campsite and also driving around more at night. All right. Hit the reverse. Beautiful. Back to camp we go. Vroom. And this thing leaves awesome trails. I love it. I've been looking forward to this for a while now. I am excited. And I'm so pleased with how this machine is handling. Just cruising through the snow is just so awesome. Coming back up on the spot we dropped in on. My sled's somewhere down there. Let's go back to camp. Alright, made it back. Go ahead and flip off our vehicle and let's see how much battery we ended up using on this thing. I was driving around there for about maybe like a half hour just driving on those trails. And I don't know if you can see on my phone right now, 82%. So we used 18% getting out here, dropping off camp, then just driving around for like a half hour having some fun. I definitely want to save some juice of the battery for tonight camping and then also driving around a little bit at night. And I want to have at least 30% to get back tomorrow just because it's cold and the batteries tend to have less, I guess, capacity or like power when it's colder. So I just want to have extra sure I have enough to get back. But yeah, that was so much fun just driving around the trails and I had such a blast. Yeah, I feel like right here the fish will be. What a nice day. Whew. All right, let's get this tent up. I ratcheted everything down. So hopefully I didn't lose anything on the trail. I don't think so. I did just drive back over it. Ugh. Big tent. Alright, so I got these like these jellyfish or whatever. I don't know, these little boot things. And they have these little like metal teeth. So I'll grip on the ice. Yeah, this should help walking around. Got some nice grip, I won't fall when I'm setting up tent. Alright, got our structure up. And it came with some of these like screws. Never used them, but I think it's pretty easy. I don't know. There we go. It started to catch. Stuck on the ice. Not gonna blow away. Yeah, this thing's pretty cool. It's got like windows. Go ahead and open them up. And it looks like we got a vent here. Oh, cool. I brought a cot, and looking at this, I'm not sure if it's gonna fit in here. I might have to sleep literally on the ice tonight. Let's go grab the cot and see if it'll fit. I feel like it should fit. Oh yeah, we are perfect. That is beautiful. Definitely a tight fit in here with the cot, but oh, it's gonna be perfect. All right, let's get the rest of the gear in here. Oh, this is looking cool in here. I am a bit warm out there. Got my cot here, got my pillow, food, cooking gear, all that stuff, camera gear, sleeping bag, power stuff, little table, my water, got some hot water, got some more water. Oh yeah, I also got some fishing gear, got my little pole out there still. This is pretty sweet, to be honest. I am excited to spend the night here. Never done anything like this, and yeah, should be a lot of fun. I can't believe how sunny it is today. It's usually like gray, but it is just beautiful out there. Whew. Yeah, turn it back on. Alright, turn this thing back off. Now we're a little bit closer to the tent so I can run my port. I'm going to be using this 12-volt one for heat later, and then I can run my extension cord for my inverter from here and just kind of feed it under the tent. There we go. There we go. Now later, when I can just turn on my inverter, we'll have power for whatever we need. Sweet. It's cool. When the doors close, it almost looks like the ground is radioactive. It's like a nice green sheen to it. Alright, let's try our hand at some ice fishing. Alright, I think I'm missing something. Look how cool it is before I break through. It's like totally lit up in here, and you can see how deep it is so far. Pretty deep ice. Cold, but man, that's really cool looking. Well, we made it through. I think I'm gonna get the shovel and scoop out all this stuff. Anything down there? I don't know. And I know what you're thinking. Let's shove a camera down it and see what we see. Good luck, camera. Don't break down there, please. The camera did not like being in that cold water. It lasted around like 10 seconds and just turned off. I can't believe I've never gone ice fishing till right now. I have no idea why. I've lived around lakes my whole life. I've done a lot of non-ice fishing, but here I am. It's a unique concept. You're just like literally on the lake and you make a hole in it. I don't know, to me it's funny. Alright, let's see what we can do. Down it goes. Definitely see the worm dancing around down there. And it's surprising how like lighted up it all is down there. I guess now we just wait and see what happens. Now it makes sense why they sell those kits that you like put your rod in with a flag that lets you know if you catch a fish, because you just sit and wait for it. I'm so used to just like casting when I'm fishing. But yeah, this is just more of a wait and see if something happens game. Yeah, I'm going to give this a little bit longer, then I think I'm going to start making some dinner because I'm starting to get hungry. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. No luck so far, but definitely be trying more tonight and after dinner. But for now, I'm a bit hungry. Let's make some food. Right as I'm starting to get my stuff out for dinner, I slid my little thermos, and it slid because it's ice, of course. And I just had a vision of it sliding through here and just disappearing into the ground. I think it would float though, but I just gotta be careful when there's a hole down there. It's funny. Since it's cold out, I thought it'd be nice to make a delicious stew type thing today. And I got some pretty good stuff for that planned. I got a pack of ramen, some of these dried shiitake mushrooms, I really like these. I got some miso paste, sweet potato, an awfully frozen carrot, some celery, a frozen spicy serrano pepper. And then lastly, a can of tiny shrimp, which is sadly super frozen. Hopefully it comes out of there. But yeah, everything is gonna be a little bit harder to cut. But let's get into it. Gotta try a little piece. Pepper check. It's so frozen. It's frozen and cold and spicy at the same time. What a weird sensation. Woof! That one's actually pretty spicy too. Woo! It's gonna be good in the soup though. Then a nice scoop of this miso paste. What? Definitely, definitely frozen. There we go. Got my little propane stove, and I'll go ahead and crack a window before I turn this on. This is gonna be good. Crack this window open just to get some fresh air in here because I am using fuel. Won't be too long, we'll have our nice soup boiling. And I forgot to mention, I brought a little thing of biscuits. I want to put some biscuits on top and cook them because it's so good that way. Yeah, this is gonna be nice. A perfect day. It's starting to cool down a bit after not like running around so much. I can definitely feel that it's actually winter out. I mean, I'm literally on ice right now. There is definitely a lot of gear inside this tent. Just barely managed to make it all fit, but hey, looking good. Whee! Things are cooking up nicely. Smells good in here. I smell those peppers, honestly. Let's add in this puck of noodles. Steaming this place up, making it smell incredible. This is awesome. Last thing to add, let's throw in some biscuits on top and have these puppies cook up. There we go. Now this, it's gonna be great. And these things should cook up beautifully. Wow, those things are puffing up already. Oh yeah, the fact that these are peeling in layers, I think it's ready. You know, I'm gonna turn this thing off. Alright, how am I gonna get this out of here? Ooh, the dumplings. Or the biscuits, whatever you want to call them. Oh, the bowl is getting so hot I can barely hold it. Steamy. This is gonna be so good. Let's give this a try. Oh, that's good. Oh, it's so warm. This is like a perfect cold weather meal. I love just making delicious soups or stew. It's crazy how warm it got in here with the stove on. It got up to 51 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's like 32 outside right now, so very nice. It's definitely going to cool down pretty quickly though. I'm honestly super happy with how the snow machine did today. It did fantastic, and I was driving it around pretty hard for like a half hour straight, and it didn't use up too much battery, which is always a positive. Yeah, that machine turned out really well, and it was a fun build. It took me like, I think 5 days to build.
maybe 6 days since the controller broke and I had to buy a new one. Yeah, pretty easy, straightforward build, nothing crazy. I think every time I'm building something I get a little bit better and I learn something new. Like for this project, I took the technique I did for making like the steering fork for the motorcycle camper and I kind of reproduced it on this one a little bit different. And for the control arms on this project, I used a similar kind of construction that I did on my previous rover projects. It's just cool to see how every project I learn something and I can put it towards a new project and just get better and better at making things and just having fun with it, because it's a blast. It truly is a blast to make these things, and I've been loving using that square punch tubing to make things. It just literally feels like I'm playing with a Lego set, which is so much fun for me. The mushrooms just like swell up so big and they're just full of delicious broth. I'm definitely going to turn on my little diesel heater soon. I'm excited to try it out. Should be getting it pretty toasty in here probably all night long. So good. Oh, I am stuffed. That was so good. I love making food like that, especially in winter. It's just like the warmest, coziest thing you can imagine. It is currently 43 degrees Fahrenheit inside. It says it's 40 degrees outside, but I mean the thermometer is right next to it. Anyways, I'm going to plop this outside and let's set up the diesel heater. It is honestly beautiful today. I can't get over the weather. It was freezing cold the past week and today's like such a wonderful day. Ooh, I got to remember at night to unplug these things before I drive away. Otherwise I'm going to like take things with me. I'm going to drop the thermometer just here and let's set up this diesel heater. I've never used this before. I've only tested it just to make sure it wouldn't like explode or something. So these things are pretty unique. They're diesel heaters. There's about a gallon of diesel fuel in here. You still need power, so I did attach one of these quick connectors which will mate up perfectly with the 12-volt supply I have in my snow machine. The heat comes out here. This one came with like a duct that I'm gonna place on the end of it, and then I'm just gonna run the elephant's trunk into the back door on the tent, so the heat will be able to just flow this way into the tent, warming me up all night long. Another thing to keep in mind with diesel heaters, this is an exhaust and a little muffler because it does produce carbon monoxide and exhaust, so you always got to be careful about that. But this part also gets super hot. That's why I lifted it up a bit and added on these like wooden legs underneath. And I also covered the exhaust with like a fiberglass silicone hose, and I tested it just outside the garage to make sure it wouldn't like catch on fire, and did beautifully. So yeah, let's plug this thing in and turn it on and see how well it does heat up the tent tonight. Now I can take my little 12-volt connector, bring it over to the 12-volt output on my little snow machine. Yeah, we got power on this thing. You just hit on. Actually, I should take this little remote inside. There you go. And you just hit on. And it says on. Start heating. And it's going to start heating. And it does make a little bit of a noise because there's like a fuel pump, so it makes like a ticking. Alright. And on the inside, we can see the little kind of heat pipe. And I can adjust it, have it kind of shoot up. And to make sure we're nice and safe, carbon monoxide alarm. And then I got a more intense one right here. This one like reads all sorts of gases, oxygen, explosive gases, carbon monoxide, and I think hydrogen sulfide or something. I don't know, but I'm pretty much only interested in the oxygen and carbon monoxide. And I'll just have these on, hanging out all night, making sure everything is running good from our diesel heater. Yeah, always good to be safe. Yeah, it's pretty cool. This thing is blowing out a lot of air, like quite a bit of air. I think it's gonna be too much heat for this small tent. I think you can adjust it. I'm sure you can. But yeah, this is gonna be cool. I'm excited. It's gonna be nice and toasty in here, trying to fish with a diesel heater. How awesome is that? The sun is starting to get low over there. Just the vast lake of ice and the beautiful sun. Alright, let's try to catch some fish. Ooh, oh wow, it's definitely warmer in here. The heater's been running for just honestly 5 minutes.
And we're already at 46 degrees Fahrenheit in here and 31 degrees outside. Alright, let's try to do some more fishing. It's starting to get dark, so I'm going to pull out a flashlight and see if we can see anything down there. Nothing. I hope that fish bite at night, because it's starting to get night. But look how thick that ice is. It's crazy. Cool. In you go. I feel like the fish, they gotta be just so like slow and tired in the winter. I cannot imagine them moving a lot. I've gotten pretty lucky on this lake though in like the spring and summer, catching some pretty nice sized bass. So I know that there's like stuff here, and this would be about the spot that I caught that stuff, so we just gotta wait and see. Wait and see. Not having much luck. I think it's time to change up the lure game. We'll try this little green guy. Down she goes. Ice fishing is so interesting. There's literally just a hole I'm fishing from. I don't know, it's funny to me, but it's cool. I'm enjoying it. Even though I haven't caught anything, it's still a pretty cool experience. And also, it is getting very warm in here. You can see 66 degrees Fahrenheit in here and 28 degrees outside. The diesel heater is just cooking away. Fantastic. Not really sure how long it's going to last with the gallon, but I'll just let it run. Not having much luck at all. I think I'm gonna call it for ice fishing, at least for now. I might try again later tonight, but not having much luck at all. Starting to get pretty dark out there. Only a couple minutes left of sun, and I think I'm about to get ready to drive the snow machine. But before that, I gotta power off my diesel heater. I think it needs to like cool down without abruptly just pulling out the power, so I'll let it completely shut off. Then we'll go outside and drive the snow machine around. You can see just the hole of darkness. Definitely gonna try fish it again later. I really want to like send a light down there somehow. I don't know if I can though. Anyways, let's go have some fun. Drive a little snow machine. And yeah, it is dark out there. I have a headlamp on right now so I can see what I'm doing. The diesel heater turned off. How much fuel did we use? It was at 100%. You can see we used like one tick mark. So got like 80% or 90% left. So looking good. Now I can go ahead and unplug our 12-volt supply. The inverter stays with me, but I need to unplug it from the tent. There we go. Wow, my tent has reflectors on it. Cool. A lot colder than it was earlier, that's for sure. Turn this thing on. Alright. Oh yeah. Just gliding over the snow. Oh, this is great. You can see him following the tracks of something. I don't know what. There's a lot of them. Maybe a deer. Driving at night is so much fun. Literally feels like I'm just floating over here. I think this is a pretty good spot to turn around. Back to the shelter we go. And I love the tracks this thing makes. It's so cool looking. This thing is just too much fun. And I'm definitely glad I put on some footrests. Otherwise my feet would be in danger. see the tent and the little reflectors on it. That was awesome. Let's go and park back over here. All right, turn on my headlight. Off with that, down with the seat. And honestly, the seat is pretty comfortable. Can't complain. Now to re-plug in all my goodies. Plug in our 12-volt supply. There we go. Beautiful. All right, we are back in business. Well, that was so much fun. I love driving my machines at night, and that one handles beautifully. I was definitely a little bit worried that it would have had a hard time steering with just the big tire on the front, but it's doing wonderful. I almost thought about building a big ski instead of it on the front, but I'm happy I went with the tire. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And for battery status, we're at 68%, if you can see that. I think I used like 12% on that drive. Maybe I was out 20, 25 minutes. I'm not really sure, but we went pretty far. It's cool to see animal tracks everywhere, just kind of floating above. Such a wonderful build, and I'm so happy with it. I definitely want to try to do a little bit more ice fishing tonight, but before that, I want to make a nice little sweet treat that I'm excited about, so let's check it out. All right, let's go ahead and check our refrigerator. And our refrigerator happens to be under the bed. You can see I brought some cookies, some triple chocolate cookie dough. That's right. We're gonna try to bake some cookies. It's funny, the leg went in the hole. And to bake them, I brought my little toaster oven. Last time I used it, this thing kind of broke and stopped working, but for whatever reason, I tried it again and it seemed to turn on. So hopefully, we'll be able to make some cookies out here. Let's plug in our toaster oven. Make sure this thing actually works still. I really hope so. Alright, the light went on. Are we pulling power? Haha, 535 watts. Yay, the thing works again. I don't know why it stopped working last time. Maybe it was like a thermal switch or something, but we're in Cookie Town now. The bonus thing about winter camping is the world... Oh! Can you say the tripod leg slipped into the ice hole? Because it did. Like I was saying, the good thing about winter camping is the world is your refrigerator. Wow, these things are massive. I need to cut these in like quarters. The key to using this toaster is, remember having to squish them out a bit. Let's throw 2 on here and see. And since there's 2, I don't know. I never really know. It takes a couple to get it going good. Right now it's 52 degrees in here and 26 degrees outside, so starting to get chilly out there and a little bit windy as well. You know, I'm just baking some cookies next to a hole in the ice in a tent on a frozen lake. Oh, this is awesome. Oh, and you can't forget, we got like a nice heater just blowing some hot air in here. This thing is a champion. You know what? Those look pretty good. Okay. Maybe a little soft. Not too bad. Cheers. Very good. I think it needs a touch longer. Yeah, this one's sort of falling apart. Yeah, needs a little bit more time. I also ended up bringing some hot chocolate. This is enough to make a couple of these small little cups. Oh yeah, still warm. I am so cozy right now. These are definitely some funky looking cookies. And set it to like 4. Delicious plate of cookies, some hot chocolate, hanging out on the ice. Cheers. Yeah, these are really good. These are cooked way better than that first one. I'm definitely happy my toaster oven is working again. This is turning out to be just such a beautiful night. The weather was absolutely perfect and it's so nice. It's 60 degrees Fahrenheit in here right now.
the last bite. So good. The toaster did a fantastic job. And for the battery, we are at 65%. What was that, 68 before? Something like that? Did we go down like 3%? 4%? Not really sure, but really not too bad. Not too bad at all. Just cleaned up the little toaster oven, and while cleaning up, I almost dropped a spoon into the hole. I dropped it and it slid and got real close. It just got me looking into this dark abyss down there. It's just wild to me. It's just like this small hole, and there's creatures down there, and I definitely want to see them. So I rigged up this little thing. Hopefully it works. This is my backup camera, my GoPro, and I tied a light to it. And I want to send this down the hole and see if we see anything. In the name of science, let's send it in. You see anything cool down there? Oh wow, you're freezing. Well, the camera lasted about 10 seconds down there, and I don't think I saw anything. I think the coolest thing was there was like a piece of leaf frozen in the ice. And also, my bag, it was not waterproof. My flashlight is soaked. But I mean, it still works, so I think it's okay. I'll just let it dry out for the night. Alright. Check out this guy. It's a spider with some hooks on it. I doubt I'll ever catch anything with it. I thought it was cool though. Oh, actually, I have this thing. Does it work? Oh, it does. Ooh, how cool would it be to send this down there? I don't know if I can, but maybe I can rig something together. Oh yeah. Alright, well, it's on the bottom. I don't know what I expected from that, but it was just fun for me. And now I'm gonna try to do some real fishing. Hopefully this didn't scare away all the fish within like a mile. Maybe it attracted them, like bugs to a light or something. But yeah, let's try to do some real night fishing. I'm gonna try this little green guy again. I'm not really sure what lures you use for ice fishing, so I'm just kind of guessing. I talked to my cousin and he suggested I get mealworms, but I obviously forgot to get them, so I'm gonna just try this green guy again. I feel like he's shiny, he's got some like glitter in him, and yeah, let's see what we can do. Away it goes. Even if I don't catch anything ice fishing, I'm definitely having a wonderful time. It's so unique. You just literally come out here, you drill a hole in the ground, and then there's like fish down there. I don't know, it's so bizarre to me. It doesn't even feel like I'm on a lake. There's just a random hole. Such a cool experience. Come on, fishy fishy. I think there's actually little flurries of snow happening out there. See them catching on the window. And I felt a few actually coming through this vent. Little bits of ice hitting me in the face. Huh. Well, I guess it is snowing a little bit. Really not having much luck. I think I'm about to call it on the ice fishing tonight. Well, I tried to catch a fish. Nothing, no luck. Maybe they're deeper, and I'm sure I did a lot of things wrong, like probably wrong bait. Probably sending a flashlight down to the bottom of the lake was not helpful. So, I don't know, but I definitely had fun, and it was a wonderful time trying to ice fish. But for now, I think it's time to make up the little sleeping situation and get some rest, because it's pretty late out right now. Oh, I am tired. It's been a long day, but a really good day. Kind of crazy to think I'm just like camped up on some ice right now, but it's over 9 inches thick, so I don't have to worry. It's perfectly safe for all my stuff. Anyways, I am tired and ready to get some sleep, so get some sleep, everybody, and I'll see you in the morning. Sleep well. Oh, it's cold. Good morning. It's currently 28 degrees in here.
I was hoping the heater would last till at least after breakfast. Yep, we're still on the ice. Still got the hole, and it's nice and liquid still. And it looks like the green is starting to glow up through the ice again because the sun is out. And it's just so bright out there with all of the white snow. First things first, I want to have myself a nice cup of tea. I already opened up a bunch of hand warmers, so I just want to hold on to as well. Get these things warm in a minute. My water bottle was slightly frozen to the ground. That's crazy. Let's make this tea, and for that, I got this little collapsible water boiler. And we're pulling 575 watts right now. And we'll have some water boiling in a couple minutes. I haven't seen a wink of anything down there. Oh yeah. Cheers. Now that I got something warm in me, I'm ready to make some breakfast. And for that, I ended up bringing my electric waffle maker. Let's make some nice Belgian waffles on top of this frozen ice. And it so happens my oil is absolutely frozen. I ended up boiling some extra water in my little kettle thing, hoping that I could just drop my oil in here and just let it float around for a while, and hopefully it'll melt it, because it'll be hard to mix it up in our waffle mix if it's just a chunk of ice. I'm gonna have to do the same for my honey. It's just like a honey popsicle. Probably be tasty, but I'm not gonna be able to get it on the waffles like this. Let's see. Ooh, it's so hot. Oh, and it works so well. Oh, what a great idea. All right. Let's make some delicious waffles. Close it, flip it. Alright. Oh, look at these beauties. Hot, hot, hot. Woo! Alright, real quick. Let's try this. Wow. These waffles are so good. I definitely want to eat these while they're nice and warm. The waffle maker just makes like so much steam. Feels nice and warm though. Woo! Look at that. These are coming out fast and hot, and I'm warming up so much from like 5 seconds ago. Fresh waffles and honey sitting on top of some ice in a cool little tent. That waffle machine is fantastic. I feel like it's getting very steamy in here. Crispy. Beautiful. This place just looks like it's on fire. There's so much fog in here. It's like super dense. Got a nice plate of some fresh waffles, some nice hot honey, and a beautiful morning. Oof, these are great. This has been a wonderful adventure. It's cool to try something new and camp out on the ice. I can definitely see the appeal to like ice fishing and ice camping, and why some people get like these crazy setups and stuff. I mean, this is kind of a crazy setup. But I just didn't catch any fish. But honestly, I have not seen anything down there. It raised the temperature to above freezing. It's 33 degrees in here after making those waffles, and 22 degrees outside, so it is a beautiful morning and a wonderful adventure. And I just want to say I truly appreciate you all for watching these videos. Without you watching it, I really couldn't do stuff like this, and I just have so much fun building and camping and just doing these little adventures and just trying new things. And I really hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And I want to say thanks for watching, everybody. It really means a lot to me. Cheers. Just finished up with breakfast. Delicious. I'm nice and warm and full. and ready to try my hand at some ice fishing. Right now, the battery is currently at 55%, so we are beautiful. I wanted to at least have 30% to dry back just to make sure everything's good in the cold, because the cold kind of does eat away your total capacity a bit. But yeah, doing wonderful. Let's try our hand at doing a little bit more ice fishing before I call it. Let's try this little green guy right here. Definitely see the lure down there, along with not much else. Maybe it's just been so cold that the fish are really deep or something. I have no idea.
I like to give it little jiggles. I think the fish would like that. Nothing is happening. I'm honestly thinking I'm gonna call it.
Well, no fish, but I still had a lot of fun. Definitely want to try ice fishing again in the future, and hopefully next time I'll actually catch something. But for now, I think it's time to clean up camp and head on back, because I have a lot of stuff to pack up and a lot to drag back as well. Whew. Yep, diesel heater's empty. Let's go ahead and unplug that. Alright, start to clean up. Oh wow. Looks like where the exhaust was, it still ended up melting the ice a bit. I wonder how deep it actually got from under there. That's crazy. At least it didn't like melt through. If it was any lower, it would have been quite a big hole.
Super frozen. Alright, tent. Time to take you down. It's funny, it's like frozen to the ground. Oh. It's so much stuff. You know, just lounging on top of all my gear. Yeah, but look at this. That's like a pretty clean looking square. You can definitely tell it was a lot warmer here because all of like the cloudy ice melted and refroze as a lot clearer ice. Sadly, no fish, but maybe next time. But yeah, I think it's time to hook it up to the back of all of our gear. Well, it's been a wonderful adventure, everybody. I truly hope you enjoy these videos. It's a lot of fun for me to build these things, and I hope you enjoyed the process from building to making to taking it out and just having fun. Anyways, it's time for me to head on back home. Got a long journey ahead of me. Again, thanks for stopping by, everybody, and I'll catch you all in the next one. This thing's so much fun.